The CIA spent billions overthrowing governments. They called it spreading democracy. They called it protecting freedom. But here's what they never tell you. Every single regime they installed came back to haunt America. Iran, Guatemala, Congo, Chile, Afghanistan, Iraq. The pattern is always the same. Remove the leader you don't like, install a puppet, then act surprised when the whole thing explodes in your face. Coups, chaos, blowback. The CIA didn't just destabilize nations. They created the very enemies America would spend trillions fighting for decades. And the worst part, they kept doing it, over and over. Same playbook, same catastrophic results, different country. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the covert operations that didn't just fail. They unleashed consequences so devastating, we're still living with them right now. And nobody in Washington wants you to connect these dots. Iran, 1953. It started with oil. In 1953, Iran had a democratically elected prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh. His crime? He nationalized Iranian oil. He wanted Iran's resources to benefit Iranians. Radical idea, right? The oil under our soil belongs to us. Britain was furious. They've been siphoning Iranian oil for decades through the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, now known as BP. So they called their friends at the CIA. Operation Ajax was born. The CIA spent roughly $1 million bribing military officers, hiring mobs, and planting fake stories in Iranian newspapers. They manufactured a revolution against a democracy. Mossadegh was overthrown. The Shah was installed as America's puppet. And for 26 years, the Shah ruled with an iron fist. His secret police, Savak, tortured and killed thousands. The Iranian people didn't forget. Shah Savak torture. In 1979, the rage boiled over. The Islamic Revolution swept the Shah from power. Ayatollah Khomeini took control. American hostages were held for 444 days, and Iran became America's greatest adversary in the Middle East. All because the CIA couldn't tolerate a democracy that controlled its own oil. But Iran was just the beginning of a much darker pattern. Guatemala's wound. 1 year after Iran, the CIA did it again. Guatemala, 1954. President Jacobo Arbenz was redistributing unused land from the United Fruit Company to poor farmers. He wasn't a communist, he was a reformer. But United Fruit had friends in Washington. Allen Dulles, the CIA director, sat on United Fruit's board. His brother, Secretary of State John Foster Dulles, was the company's former legal counsel. The Fox was guarding the henhouse. Operation PB Success overthrew Arbenz with a tiny rebel force, psychological warfare, and fake radio broadcasts. Guatemala got a military dictatorship instead of land reform. What followed was 40 years of civil war, genocide. Over 200,000 people were killed. The Mayan indigenous population was systematically massacred. The United Nations later called it genocide. And the ripple effects. The instability the CIA created in Central America is the direct root of the migration crisis that dominates American politics today. The refugees at the border. Many of them come from countries the CIA destabilized decades ago. If this pattern is starting to disturb you, hit like and subscribe to keep exposing what they hide, because what comes next connects all the dots. But Guatemala wasn't even the CIA's biggest mistake. That honor belongs to a country you already know. Congo betrayed. The Congo, 1960. Africa's richest nation in minerals had just gained independence from Belgium. Patrice Lumumba became the first democratically elected prime minister. He was young, charismatic, and he wanted the Congo's vast mineral wealth. Uranium, cobalt, diamonds, to serve his people, not Western corporations. We are no longer your monkeys. The CIA classified him as a threat, not because he was dangerous to the Congolese people, because he was dangerous to Western mining interests. President Eisenhower authorized his removal. The CIA helped orchestrate a coup, and Lumumba was captured, tortured, and executed in January 1961. His body was dissolved in acid. Uranium, cobalt, diamonds. In his place, the CIA backed Mobutu Sese Seko, one of the most brutal and corrupt dictators in African history. Mobutu ruled for 32 years, stole an estimated $5 billion, and drove one of the world's richest countries into absolute poverty. The Congo never recovered, from that single CIA decision. Today, the Democratic Republic of Congo remains one of the most conflict-torn places on Earth. Over 6 million people have died in wars since the 1990s. The minerals the CIA wanted to control, they're now in your smartphone. And what the CIA did next in South America would create shockwaves for an entire continent. Chile crushed. September 11th, not 2001. 1973, Santiago, Chile. Fighter jets bombed the presidential palace. President Salvador Allende, democratically elected, died inside. The CIA had spent years trying to prevent this moment from happening, not the coup. They tried to prevent Allende from ever being elected. When that failed, they helped destroy him. Richard Nixon told the CIA to make Chile's economy scream. They funded strikes, spread propaganda, and supported General Augusto Pinochet's military takeover. What followed was 17 years of dictatorship. Over 3,000 people were killed or disappeared. Tens of thousands were tortured in stadiums and secret detention centers. 1. Operation Condor killed dissidents across 6 countries. 2. Pinochet's regime tortured over 40,000 people. 3. CIA knew about every death squad operation. And here's the kicker. Henry Kissinger, who helped orchestrate the coup, won the Nobel Peace Prize the same year. The Chile operation set a template. The CIA proved that democracy was disposable whenever it threatened American corporate interests. As Kissinger himself allegedly said about Chile's election, "I don't see why we need to stand by and watch a country go communist due to the irresponsibility of its own people." But the next operation would prove to be the CIA's most self-destructive gamble of all, arming Saddam. The 1980s, Iran was now America's enemy. The same Iran the CIA had created by installing the Shah. So what did Washington do? They backed Saddam Hussein. The CIA provided intelligence. The US sold Iraq weapons. American companies shipped chemical weapon precursors to Baghdad. Weapons, intelligence, money. When Saddam gassed the Kurds at Halabja in 1988, killing 5,000 civilians in a single day, the Reagan administration blocked United Nations condemnation. They needed Saddam against Iran. The US literally helped arm a dictator who used chemical weapons on his own people. Then 2 years later, they called him the next Hitler. In 1990, Saddam invaded Kuwait. Suddenly, America's ally became America's enemy. The Gulf War began. Then came the sanctions that killed an estimated 500,000 Iraqi children. Then came 2003, the invasion. The weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. Blowback. Over 1 million Iraqis died. 4,000 American soldiers died. The cost, over $2 trillion. And from the ashes of Saddam's destroyed Iraq, something even worse emerged. But we'll get to that. First, there's another CIA creation we need to talk about. Afghan Trap. Afghanistan, the CIA's masterpiece of self-destruction. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. The CIA saw an opportunity. Operation Cyclone became the largest covert operation in CIA history. Billions of dollars in weapons, training, and support flowed to the Mujahideen fighters. We didn't push the Russians to intervene, but we knowingly increased the probability that they would. The CIA didn't care who they were arming: radical fundamentalists, foreign fighters from across the Arab world, anyone willing to kill Soviets. Among those fighters was a wealthy Saudi named Osama bin Laden. The CIA trained him, armed his network, funded the infrastructure that would become Al-Qaeda. Trained, armed, funded. When the Soviets withdrew in 1989, the CIA walked away from Afghanistan. They left behind a destroyed country, millions of landmines, and heavily armed extremists with no war to fight. The Taliban emerged from this chaos. And on September 11th, 2001, the blowback arrived on American soil. 3,000 Americans died because of weapons the CIA had put into circulation decades earlier. The 20-year war that followed cost over $2 trillion and ended with the Taliban back in power. The exact same force the CIA helped create. And the chaos in Afghanistan wasn't the only monster born from these covert wars. Birth of ISIS. Remember Iraq, the country the CIA helped arm, then helped destroy. When the US invaded in 2003 and dismantled Saddam's military, they didn't just create a power vacuum. They created a monster. Every disbanded soldier became a potential recruit for the next insurgency. Paul Bremer's debathification order fired 400,000 trained military personnel overnight. These men had weapons, they had training, and now they had rage. Many of them became the backbone of what would become ISIS. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the future leader of ISIS, was radicalized in an American prison camp called Camp Bucca. The CIA literally incubated the leadership of the most brutal terrorist organization of the 21st century. America built the prison that built the caliphate. ISIS swept across Iraq and Syria, enslaving, beheading, and destroying ancient cities. The cost of fighting them, another fortune in American taxpayer money. And the refugees fleeing ISIS destabilized Europe, fueling the rise of far-right politics across the continent. One CIA operation in Iraq created a chain reaction that reshaped global politics. But the pattern goes even deeper than individual operations. Libya shattered. Libya 2011. Muammar Gaddafi was many things, a dictator, certainly. But Libya under Gaddafi had the highest standard of living in Africa. Free education, free healthcare, stable, wealthy, sovereign. Then Gaddafi made a fatal mistake. He proposed a gold-backed African currency, the gold dinar. That would replace the dollar and the franc in African trade. Within months, NATO bombs were falling on Tripoli. The CIA armed rebel groups with no vetting. Hillary Clinton laughed on camera when Gaddafi was brutally killed. We came, we saw, he died. What replaced Gaddafi? Open-air slave markets. Literal human beings sold in cages. Libya became a failed state and the gateway for millions of migrants pouring into Europe. Slave markets. Weapons from Gaddafi's arsenal spread across the Sahel region, fueling conflicts in Mali, Niger, Nigeria, and beyond. The destabilization of Libya directly contributed to the rise of Boko Haram and other extremist groups across Africa. One country destroyed, and an entire continent set ablaze. And this pattern of creating chaos isn't limited to the Middle East and Africa. The same playbook was used much closer to home. The drug wars. Central and South America, the CIA's backyard, and their longest-running disaster. During the Cold War, the CIA backed right-wing dictators and death squads across the entire hemisphere. El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama. The justification was always the same: stop communism. But the reality was always about control. 1. CIA-backed Contras in Nicaragua, using drug money. 2. Manuel Noriega was CIA asset turned enemy. 3. Operation Condor killed thousands across South America. In the 1980s, the Iran-Contra scandal revealed that the CIA had been facilitating cocaine trafficking to fund the Nicaraguan Contras. Crack cocaine flooded American inner cities. The CIA helped poison its own citizens to fund an illegal war. Journalist Gary Webb exposed this connection and was destroyed for it. 2 bullets to the head ruled a suicide. The drug cartels that terrorize Mexico and Central America today grew in the power vacuums the CIA created. Drugs, death, profit, the migration caravans, the gang violence, the opioid crisis connections. All roads lead back to decades of CIA meddling in Latin America. As the great writer Eduardo Galeano once observed, the division of labor among nations is that some specialize in winning and others in losing. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of all these operations is what they reveal about the system itself. The real pattern. Step back, look at every operation we've covered. Iran, Guatemala, Congo, Chile, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Latin America. Do you see it? The pattern is always identical, no matter the country. Step 1, a nation tries to control its own resources or chart its own path. Step 2, the CIA labels them a threat. Step 3, a coup or intervention removes the leader. Step 4, a puppet or chaos replaces them. Step 5, decades of blowback that costs far more than the original problem ever would have. Install, destabilize, repeat. And who pays? Not the CIA directors who authorized these operations, not the defense contractors who profited, not the politicians who looked the other way. The people of those nations pay. American taxpayers pay. American soldiers pay. The CIA has never been held accountable for a single one of these catastrophic failures. No trials, no reforms, no accountability. Every shortcut created a longer crisis. Every puppet became a monster. Every intervention planted the seeds of the next war. The greatest threat to American security has always been American foreign policy, and the machine keeps running. Right now, today, in countries you haven't heard about yet. So here we are, decades of covert operations, trillions of dollars spent, millions of lives destroyed. And what does America have to show for it? More enemies than it started with. Every single time the CIA tried to take a shortcut, overthrowing a democracy here, arming a dictator there, the consequences came back tenfold. Blowback always comes. The Shah gave us the Islamic Revolution. Arming Saddam gave us the Gulf Wars. The Mujahideen gave us Al-Qaeda. Destroying Iraq gave us ISIS. Toppling Gaddafi gave us slave markets and a migrant crisis. The lesson is devastatingly simple. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. You cannot control the world without the world eventually fighting back. You cannot install puppets without the strings eventually snapping. You cannot play God with nations without creating demons. The next time your government tells you they need to intervene somewhere for your safety, for democracy, for freedom, remember this video. Remember Iran. Remember Iraq. Remember Afghanistan. Remember that every single time they said, "Trust us," it ended in catastrophe. If you made it this far, comment "blowback cycle" to prove you see the pattern they don't want you to recognize. Every government lies. The question is, what are they lying about? The truth is out there. You just have to follow the money. Subscribe if you want to keep digging.